In the late 90s and early 2000s, gateways seemed unstoppable. In 1999, they had over 9% of the home PC market in their grasp, but it seems like just as quickly as they rose to prominence, they fell. By 2002, they had dropped it to only 6%. It was alleged that the company's executives were committing fraud, and this, combined with a lack of focus on quality of products and support, eventually led to their downfall. That is, until 2007 when Acer acquired them. But today I want to take a look at a computer from the peak of Gateway's existence in 2002, the Gateway 600 YGR laptop. Now, this laptop is from that weird transitionary period between the 90s and 2000s, when laptops were getting these new features that we take for granted today, but still keeping some of the old ones. For example, this computer still has USB, DVD-ROM support, and an LCD screen, but it also has a parallel port option for a floppy drive and a Windows 98 style start key. And part of this leads to this laptop having some very meh components. For example, this laptop has media keys on the front, but I bet you didn't see them until I pointed them out because they're the same color as the chassis, and I only found them because I couldn't find the volume keys on the regular keyboard. The trackpad is also comically small, and it's sunken so deep into the laptop that you need a huge hand in order to use it properly. The keyboard is also fine, but it uses an early chiclet design as opposed to the mechanical switches that many 90s laptops had, and it ends up not being quite as nice as some of the laptops I have that are just a few years newer. And the so-called build quality of this laptop doesn't really have a lot of quality to it. While it's heavy and thick, it feels like it would crack in half if I were to drop it on the ground. This is pretty disappointing when you consider that a machine like this would have cost you over $2,000 back in 2002, which, to be clear, wasn't exactly the most you'd be paying for a laptop back in this era, but it was still quite pricey. However, the idea was that the laptop would make up for its shell with its internals. But starting on the outside, this has a PS2 port, VGA, parallel, DVD, S-Video, dual PCMCI slots, USB, audio jacks, and optical audio. And you also get composite video output for a CRT television, and that means... does that mean what I think it means? And that means that yes, you can hook up this laptop directly to a VCR and record right onto VHS tapes. Pretty neat. Speaking of the screen, there were two options, a 1024x768 display or 1280x1024, which is the one this has. It's typical of early TN technology. The display has a lot of ghosting and the colors are hardly vibrant. The 4:3 aspect ratio leaves this device leaving it feeling a lot bigger than you'd expect from a 15-inch laptop. Like, here's a widescreen 15-inch laptop from around the same time, and it fits inside of the chassis. But it's surprisingly nice for documents and period-accurate web browsing because it's so tall. Moving inside the laptop is a Pentium 4M CPU running at 1.9 GHz, 8-tape mobility Radeon 7500, and a whole 1 GB of RAM. The hard drive has since been replaced with an IDE to SD card adapter though, and obviously the RAM was upgraded from stock. These specs would have made for a pretty nice experience back in the early 2000s, with a dedicated graphics processing providing hardware acceleration, and the CPU being able to handle almost any period-accurate task you could throw at it. But it's worth noting that comparatively speaking, Pentium 4M wasn't very good compared to the mobile lineup Intel was releasing at the time, kind of being the runt in the litter. See, if you wanted a lot of performance on a laptop back then, you had two options. Either buy a hyper-expensive, hyper-thick laptop with a desktop chip inside, or go with Intel's solution, which was to take net-birth architecture, remove the IHS, and lower the TDP until it was something the laptop could actually cool again. But this consequently meant that you simply couldn't get desktop-like performance from one of these, even highly clocked ones. Pentium M, released just a year later, solved these problems by evolving Pentium 3 to Alton architecture around a smaller node process, greatly improving power efficiency and making it actually feasible to call one of them a desktop replacement. It's just another example of how unpredictable the evolution of technology was back then. When it comes to real-world and synthetic benchmarks though, it might be a different story. And for that, I'd like to hand it off to friend of the channel, Browell Tech, to give you the benchmarks. Well, I think my friend made a great point about this laptop. If it was a choice between the Dell Inspiron of the era and this, I think I'd go with the Dell any day. It's technically a better value, has better features, and is from a more reputable laptop company. Gateway was definitely not one of those early adopters of laptop or really mobile computing technology. There's a good chance if you have memories of a Gateway computer, it was likely a desktop, not a laptop. Not to invalidate Gateway laptop owners out there, but this thing is kind of an abomination if I'm being completely honest. Definitely not the cream of the crop when it comes to 2000s laptops. But it's always interesting nonetheless to look at what Gateway or any now defunct computer company was doing back in their prime, and I don't really know what to think about what I saw today. It's just funny to me because these laptops are very worthless but also extremely rare. I was only able to find a handful of videos demonstrating what this computer was capable of. But with that, this has been the Gateway 600 YGR, a mid-range home computing laptop from the early 2000s, and this is Calc G, out.